Now, everyone is talking about scaling. It is a hot topic and has been for a long time. No matter if solopreneurs who are professionals who are stepping out of corporate want to build and grow the business, or established businesses who want to really scale up. But then the question is, how do you even go about it? Where to invest first? In people, in automation, in processes, or everything in between? And today we're joined by somebody who has carved out a niche for himself to do exactly that, support businesses to scale their service-based offers and swap tech for time. I'm super excited for Josh to be here. Josh License is our guest this week. Thank you so much for joining us, Josh.
Oh, thank you for having me, Petra.
We have known each other for a little while now, and you've carved yourself out a niche which I found super interesting. You are known and trusted to work with businesses and help them scale, especially their service-based businesses. And we always say you trade tech for time because nobody wants to work 24/7. But you didn't start there. Can you give us a bit of a background? How did you get to where you are, and what exactly are you doing right now in your role?
Oh, cool. Well, I guess I would say like there's a main guiding principle that's always guided me in my career, and that's been to keep my options open and maintain flexibility. So, from experience with those close to me, I know how difficult it can be when you stay in a job you hate for so long. So I always had this idea to have options and flexibility in my career. So what does that mean? I started out studying two things, not just one. So I did commerce and engineering to keep my options open, and started my work in engineering at a chocolate factory. Um,
Love
so
it.
yeah, I don't know if I told you that before.
No.
But my job was to put these little metal detectable labels on all the chocolate making equipment in the factory, and that we were looking after, and in turn they made the chocolate. So I was at Cadbury for around 3 years before we had that trend where a lot of manufacturing was going overseas in Australia.
Mhm.
And I was working in manufacturing. I thought, well, maybe I should try and keep my options open. I don't want to have to work overseas if I don't want to. What are some roles that do that? And business consulting was one that shone out to me. And so I started some work at Deloitte back then. So I went through their program, and through Deloitte, sort of learnt the ropes of the consulting process. Worked out that working with the big end of town maybe wasn't quite as fulfilling as working with business owners. And I found a home with another business called BlueRock in 2016. And through that role is where I really found my passion for working with business owners and perhaps becoming one myself one day. So what I love about working with business owners is they like to move fast, they make decisions quicker, and we're happy to aim, fire, adjust, so to speak. So over about 5 years working with BlueRock and getting exposure to business owners, I thought I'd try it myself, and I started Apparatus Quo.
There you go.
Yeah. And I've started, I think we've been operating since July 2020. And yeah, our focus is as well working with small and medium growing business and help bring some of that big end of town capability to the small and medium growing businesses.
And you know what I love about this specialization or this niche so much? You connect the two worlds of technology and commerce and business consulting, which not many actually have. They are either or. And then at the same time, because you've worked at the big end of town, you know what works best, what are the best practices that those established organizations use, but you can offer it to a much more cost-effective price and also engagement to your clients that are small to medium-sized businesses.
Yeah,
So
there's a lot of low hanging fruit out there where you can get that capability at a fraction of the price, if you're deliberate and know where to look.
Absolutely. And I think this is nowadays even more so important because companies experience a lot more pressure because there's more competitive landscape out there. It doesn't matter which industry or profession businesses are in. At the same time, we see the war for talent. So we can't necessarily fill seats with talents, or they don't have necessarily the skill sets that a company needs. They also need to stay a lot leaner when it comes to overheads. And this is where consulting comes in. So you tick a lot of boxes where you can support your clients. Now, we've also seen a lot of changes, especially since COVID-19 hit. Like everything has been fast tracked and turned upside down. From your experience, what are the biggest adjustments that your clients and the businesses that you have consulted with, how have they responded to those changes?
Yeah, it's interesting, Petra. So I work with a lot of professional services firms. I'd say maybe 70 to 80% of my work is with businesses like engineering consultancies, marketing agencies, architects, those in the professional services space, as well as some select clients in the manufacturing space. So I guess talking from that perspective, I'd see the main changes I've seen that's sort of navigating this craziness that's going on externally is those that are doing it well is a focus on cool, calm, and collected processes internally. So things like being super clear on roles and expectations in the team, which includes getting the right people on the bus. So I've seen a lot of businesses making sure they're getting the right people on the bus. There's been some shifts up top or in middle management layer, and that really sets the scene for what comes next. The other thing I've noticed is setting up for different ways of working. With all the changes in the last few years, there's this term asynchronous ways of working. How do we work asynchronously with people who might be in different time zones, places, locations? How do we set the standards for how we work together, which includes the conventions for what's our working rhythm? How do we connect, and how do we make things visible to one another? So I guess they're the high level highlights that I've seen, and of course we can go deeper into them.
What I love about that is this cool, calm, collected approach, because there's so much uncertainty going on. And what I'm seeing from executive leaders, it's the bigger requirement is to be calm and create a lot more certainty for the staff, rather than having all the big visions and the ping pongs and the foosball tables and so forth, because it's a distraction, and it's not necessarily what gets talents in the door or keeps them there. So having this very systematic approach to how do we stay in business, how do we grow, how do we make sure we are sustainable in what we're doing, that's I love that you focused on that. Now that brings me into my next question. There's so much confusion about scaling and growing. The same, what's the difference? Can you elaborate a little bit more? What is the difference, if there is one, and also what do we need to focus on when we are in which kind of stage?
Yeah, gotcha. Like, I heard once, who was it? Maybe it's someone at BlueRock. They mentioned the businesses go on what's called a sigmoid curve. Have you heard of it?
No.
A sigmoid curve, or like S curve. So when you're growing, naturally, I guess you're in that coming up of a sideways S, and you'll get to a natural point where, without an injection of energy, resources, or something, it's going to start petering off at some place, right? So, for example, the business that's one person, you can only grow to a certain point before any extra effort, that marginal benefit, is starting to decrease with the effort. So, what you need then is a conscious and deliberate injection of energy in the right place that helps you grow to the next place. So, I guess for me, like these sigmoid curves, growing is this more natural and organic process that you're going on. And scaling is where you've got that conscious and deliberate injection of energy at the right place at the right time.
And when you say injection of energy, what exactly is it? Could it be anything from money, if it's advertisement, or could it also be resources, people, or more automation?
No, it's so people, process, or platform. So any one of those three. So typically people comes first, right? So you're one person, you inject another person into the business, suddenly you're twice as effective. But when you get from 99 to 100, it's a little bit different. So the injection of energy might need to be somewhere else to get that growth or that scale. So I think first it's people. Next, it's making sure that those people are aligned on the vision, objectives, and the plan of attack. So you've got that clear roles, responsibilities, and goals. And then it's about dividing and conquering that vision across the team and setting up a rhythm for delivery. So it really, I guess that energy injection depends on where you're at as a business. Is it people? Is it looking at your processes internally or externally? Or is it the platforms you're using?
Well, that's a really good question, because how do we find that out? Is there a bit of a process that you work through with your clients to identify what is the next priority? And if so, what can we do to see what is the next step? Because in the end, adding somebody is also a big overhead often, because people are still the most expensive resource. how do we know that we are on the right track by hiring somebody already?
Yeah, gotcha. Well, typically then, and because I'm not I guess an accountant by trade, there is a financial element, as you alluded to there, right? So you want to make sure the cost benefit makes sense. So typically these sort of decisions, especially the bigger you get, are made with a community of advisors around you, and it's not just one person. So really it would be, in my experience, getting the right people in the room, the leaders of the business, or those that can see where the business is going from their perspective, and everyone's got a different lens on this, and collectively working out, well, what is the strategy for the next 6 to 12 months for our business? Where are the gaps and the pain points? So really, when you're in strategy mode, it's about getting the right people in the room who have the right perspective, and through a collective process, work out what the roadmap is, whether it's a people roadmap because we've got some gaps there, whether it's a platform roadmap, or whether it's we need to redefine some key processes in our business. So not an easy direct answer, but I think in my experience, it's done best when there's a bunch of people with diverse perspectives.
Absolutely. And as you said, it starts with developing the right kind of strategy. And I want to emphasize it starts there, it doesn't end there, because you're also really focused on actually implementing the strategy and bring that to life. What are some of the next steps that you work with your clients to ensure that it's not just a nice looking document, but it's actually something that results in outcomes?
Yeah. So how do we turn strategy into delivery, as we like to call it?
Love it.
So I mean, I guess, and I was thinking about this, like, what are the common mistakes that we've seen through the work? So I guess 3 come to mind. One of them was trying to do too much at once. So I heard once from someone that a business can only really tackle one large change per quarter at a maximum. So if you're trying to make a systemic change in a business, if it's restructuring with the people, if it's putting in a new platform, you really can't do many things well. You're better off to whole-ass one thing, don't half-ass 2 things, in other words. Right? So I guess that was the first one, is being deliberate about what is that change that we're making for this quarter, let's say. The next one is once you're going through the process, is not trying to boil the ocean for a cup of salt, i.e. not focusing on the things that will make the biggest difference. An example when we do a tech implementation is trying to get it perfect and 100%, rather than trying to aim, fire, adjust, as I said earlier. Like, pilot the platform in a deliberate way, get some representative data in there as quick as you can, get a representative team testing it out as soon as they can, and get that value back into the business, rather than I've seen where businesses have paid for a subscription or a license to software but not implemented it for 6 months, and that's 6 months of dead money that's gone into that platform. And lastly, unclear roles and responsibilities. So a lot of businesses, especially if they're not used to doing like project work, like think of like a product-based business or manufacturing where it's daily operations are making widgets. It's delegating ownership and empowering the team on that strategic work. So how do we carve out time in their week, in their day, to work on those strategic projects that will take them to that next phase of growth and scale ultimately?
Absolutely. And, that's such an important reminder that in the end, it's not rocket science as such, but it's about being really clear what moves the needle to start with. This is where the strategy piece comes in, and then also communicate it. And, especially in the digital transformation and also in any kind of change projects that are happening left, right, and center to future-proof businesses, the one thing that always is the cause for those projects to fail is usually lack of communication, because team members are not communicated with what is their role, their responsibilities, expectations, and also where people are at. And now, especially over the last 2-3 years, we've seen an increase with diverse teams, but also global teams and dispersed teams. Like, they're all over the world in all different time zones. And I know that you're also a wizard when it comes to the tech tools. Like, obviously strategy is a big part in the implementation, to monitor it's a big part, but tech is definitely a big part there too. Can you talk us through a few of your favorite tools that you use and use whereby and why?
Yeah, gotcha. Well, actually, I was just thinking, tech's actually in our name. Apparatus Quo is the name, and I think it's about challenging the status quo of your apparatus, the systems in your business. So there you go. It's even in our name.
There you go.
But some of our favorites, like thinking about team comms, especially when we've got this distributed workforce. And one thing I think that makes a massive difference for a business at a certain size is a CRM, right? So tools like HubSpot is the one that we use and we recommend, but there's Salesforce, there's a lot of others out there that connect everyone on a central view of what's happening with their customer. And you'd think it'd be simple, but when emails are getting sent out left, right, and center, you're wondering, you contacted someone on Monday and then someone's reaching out on Tuesday for the same thing. It just looks unprofessional. So having a central view of the customer and connecting that to everyone's inbox like HubSpot, that's a quick win, right? And it doesn't take much to see. Before you reach out to a customer, log in, see that John Smith next to you reached out to them yesterday. Perhaps you should have a chat with John before you reach out. So that was number one. Also for I guess for the quick comms, I think there's a place for Microsoft Teams and Slack and similar instant messaging platforms. For some businesses, even WhatsApp works as well, depending on the industry. But there's a place for quickly sending someone a message to say, hey, I ask them a question about something. Same with Zoom. And then what's new is this asynchronous communication, and what are the tools that allow me to summarize something, send it across to someone else, and then they can review it in their own time when they're ready and not block their flow. So tools like Loom and for video and screen recording. And we also use a tool called Movavi as well to do some screencasting. So I'd say for team comms, they would be our favorite. And for two other categories, I think for project management, we're a big believer in Asana for our ways of work. We're getting a lot of work internally out of emails and into a source of truth that we trust. And that's where Asana comes in for us, for our personal productivity and team-based productivity. It's in Asana, and we can get work out of emails. So it works really well. Mm-hmm. And for businesses of ours that need to then track time and invoice and quote their projects, we love tools like Workflow Max and Aussie-based business Work Guru, based out of Brisbane. They're both really good tools that talk to Xero. A lot of our clients are using Xero as their accounting platform. They're two good tools that track projects.
What I love about this approach for all those tools is that it always comes down to this one source of truth, whether it's an update on projects, on inquiries, on communications, because it's in the end exactly what cuts through the noise, because we get so many notifications and things and priorities everywhere. But we can always come back to this one source of truth. We're not bombarded with emails, but we know exactly where things are at, people are at. Yeah,
I think it's actually it's a massive, what is it, pet peeve, is that the word, of mine, when I see like duplication of work or effort where it doesn't need to be there, right? Like this, if we're doing things 5 times when we could do it once, it just feels like such a waste to me. So having the right tools or source of truth and having the conventions and standards for how to use them makes a massive difference when you multiply it by all the people in your business.
Absolutely. And I think this is also what more and more companies, especially also larger companies who have grown, say, organically, or they have never had the need to actually bring all the data sources together. They have to really rethink their approach, because they cannot stay competitive for a long time if their teams are everywhere, their projects are everywhere, and the client engagement is everywhere. Like, you can only grow and scale for so long until everything breaks down.
Yeah, they need to sigmoid.
True. Very true.
And I was thinking there was a few out of left field maybe that people might not be aware of. 2 that came to mind. One was Cognito Forms. So it's just a form-based software, but if you're capturing information in a repeatable way, you can get tools like Cognito Forms to ask those questions or to route the answers. And you can do a lot of stuff that in the past you needed a software developer to do, but you can do it in a form. So say Cognito Forms is really powerful. And Lucidchart is the other one. So I know some businesses also use Miro, much of a muchness, but something to virtually map out what's happening on the screen when you can't be in the room together. So Lucidchart and Miro, those are some other ones to think about.
excellent tools. Now, speaking of tools, you probably have heard the big conversation, controversial conversation, I should say, about ChatGPT over the last few weeks. What is your take on OpenAI tools in general? What may it be that or anything else? Does it take over the world? How can we use it? Should we use it at all?
With ChatGPT or AI in general? Wow. But I think in general, these tools and they're meant to be complementary to what you're already doing. And for those that understand that they should be complementary to what they're doing, they're not afraid of them, they embrace them, and it actually allows us to do more with less. So, for example, with ChatGPT, coming up with ideas for what we might write about next, or summarizing some disparate ideas into one place, it can actually get you started. But I don't think it doesn't end there. That's just the complementary, like, running start to what you're doing. I think it's similar with, I've heard in the medical profession, like using AI to trawl through, here is some 5 inputs of what the symptoms may be, and it comes back with some ideas based on statistics of what this person might have. And it's complementary to the medical profession because it helps them get to hopefully a better outcome at the end of the day. So I think I'm not scared of it. I think embrace it. Will it take over jobs? I don't think so. Will it enhance our existing work? Absolutely.
I could not agree more with you, because there's so much conversation about technologies taking over and replacing humans. And I always say they're not replacing humans, but they're replacing humans who are not embracing the tools and who are not able to upskill and leveraging that to become more efficient and effective. Like, there's no point turning a blind eye on it, because it's not gonna go anywhere. It's only the beginning. So yeah, I love your take on that. We'll probably
100%.
see in the next 6 months where it leads to. Like, it's machine learning, it will learn by itself. We learn as we go. So I'm excited about it, to be honest.
I'll send my AI to the next podcast interview too.
Yes, maybe we can arrange our avatars catching up. Now, I'm curious, to wrap things up, for anyone who is kind of on this tipping point, and they have kind of enough demand to expand, but at the same time they don't want to go all overboard straight away. What advice would you give him? What are the first couple of steps that he could take from where they are right now?
So it really, I mean, it really depends on their starting point as well. Like let's say you're someone who is like me, you're working in a firm and then you wanted to start your own thing, to go out on your own. I guess the starting point there is just confirming what your market is and who you're going to be working with. Is there some demand for what you're going to do? Like in my situation, when I was reaching that tipping point, I think I'd had enough customers, understood how to run a business through the eyes of working with other business owners, and knew that I had enough connections that I could get started. So I guess in that situation, I knew where to play and how to win. At least for the first 6 months, I had a plan. And I think that's true for anything that you're doing at the tipping point. Confirm what the plan is or the strategy for the next 6 months. Go hard at the plan and then just review it constantly as you go. The other thing while you're doing that is identifying what are your accelerators and your multipliers. So, i.e., an accelerator could be what can you automate with software for something that you're already doing. That's for those businesses that I guess more established that have things to automate. And multipliers, like I think your business partnerships, your software partnerships, and your supplier relationships. They're the ones that can really help you do more with what you have.
I love this accelerator and multiplier approach, and also the entire holistic system to building and growing businesses, because in the end this is what helps them to be sustainable, rather than just having a cash injection. They are growing and then everything breaks because they haven't actually built the foundation. So I'm really glad that you are focusing on that specialization and supporting businesses and grow sustainably. Now, where can everyone find you, connect with you, learn more about what you do and how you can help them?
Well, I'd say the easiest way is just add me on LinkedIn, Josh License. My business is Apparatus Quo. You can find us at apparatusquo.com.au. And of course, follow us on socials at Apparatus Quo would be the easiest way. And I'll share the notes after with you, Petra, for your audience.
Absolutely. I can put all the links in the show notes. So thank you so much for sharing so much knowledge, wisdom, insights, tools, tips, and strategies. And yeah, I'm really looking forward to seeing what 2023 has in store for you.
Thank you for having me.